Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Steelers Crazy.
Aaron Smith shields. Flacco, Polamalu takes it home. Super Bowl 43. Pittsburgh might be bound for that thanks to number 43.
The sickest Pittsburgh Steelers podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
Hello, Yinzers across the nation. Thank you for watching or listening to the Sick Podcast, Steelers Crazy today. I'm your host. I'm riding solo dolo. Mike Nicastro. Follow me on Twitter at MikeDupSports1. My co-host, Jordan York, is getting ready for a big event tonight. So if you're watching this on Tuesday, first of all, I hope you're not watching it because I hope you're at the live show at Cafe Note. All right? Getting ready to see Jaylen Warren live in person. That's why he's not joining us on the podcast today if you are missing this. Sorry if you couldn't make it and you're in a different state or different country. We'll definitely have some clips to show that. And hopefully we have another show next year if you can't make it. And we'll get you some advance notice and get you some, maybe some plane tickets and have a good time. So I want to make sure every single person is aware. That's why we don't have Jaylen tonight, is the live show is happening. So hopefully you can get out there, have a good time. Tweet us, let us know in the comments section on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, however you prefer, if you went and if you had a good time. All right. I know Steelers fans are having a good time today. I'll get into that in just 1 second. But first, I want to thank the businesses that spin our wheels. They make us go over here. And I'm going to start over here with Stoney's beer. Yes, definitely one of the best mass-produced, one of the best local beers. It's not a mass-produced beer. You can't settle for a run-of-the-mill beer when you can have the best. This is how you upgrade your beer game, raise the standards, taste the difference that Stoney's beer can deliver. It's absolutely delicious. It's holiday time. You have to talk to your crazy uncle about the Steelers. He's going to say Mike Tomlin should be fired. He's going to say Kenny Pickett should be replaced by Mitch Trubisky. Have yourself a beer and allow yourself to lay back and chill and take it all in instead of getting in a heated debate at the dinner table. And I want to tell you about somebody else really quickly. I told him that I would mention him early in the show here, so let's talk about how important he is. He's going to be helping at the show tonight at the Jaylen Warren Show. Shop Yins. He's the number one brand for Pittsburgh sports. Use the code SICK15, 15% off your entire purchase at shopyins.com. You can get a beautiful hat like this. You can get really a ton of options right now. They have a Play Renegade shirt that's out. They have things for the winter they're creating right now. Obviously cold up there in the Bergs. So really, really want you to go there, get some Christmas gifts, some Hanukkah gifts for the entire family, and splurge on shopyins.com. All right, it might have been the biggest, most significant day for the Pittsburgh Steelers all season, believe it or not. I know they beat the Ravens earlier this year. I know that there have been some other big highlight moments, but today, unless you're living under a rock, you're probably aware that offensive coordinator, much maligned offensive coordinator, Matt Canada, was canned. I want to start with this. First of all, you never want to celebrate somebody losing their job, right? I'm not over here going to give you a whoop whoop parading in the street because somebody got fired. They're still a human being with a family. But listen, at the same time, I don't think Matt Canada is going to be hurting. He's going to make about $600,000 per month the rest of the season to not be on the sidelines for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So at the end of the day, I think Canada probably is going to be okay, as mentioned. And Steeler fans are absolutely elated for good reason. The offense has been some of the worst offenses we've seen in the organization's history over the past 2.5 years, ever since Matt Canada was hired. He had Big Ben's last year, of course, Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky last year, and then just a putrid offense in 2023. What we're seeing right now is unfathomable. This team is averaging 16 points per game. If this season finished today and they averaged 16 points per game, it would be the lowest, not over the past decade, not over the past 30 years, but in franchise history. That's how bad this has gotten. So was this firing warranted? Absolutely. Was it overdue? Absolutely. I think you can go back a handful of weeks and say, why the hell didn't this happen sooner? especially if the Steelers end up missing the playoffs or something, or if you see the offense just take off, right, with Sans Canada. Everybody will be looking and saying they should have made this move a long time ago, and they'd be in a lot better spot. So let's talk about that, though. Let's talk about the trickle-down effect. And I want to start none other than, of course, the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Kenny Pickett, who is not absolved in all of this. Okay, that's very important to remember. He's played like crap. Let's put it bluntly. Let's be real about it. And it's not all because of Matt Canada. You're going to have outlier games. Okay. He's thrown 2 touchdowns, I think now in what, 20 career starts roughly, and 2 touchdowns in 1 game. Okay. Tommy DeVito, a rookie starting quarterback for the New York Giants, undrafted, playing in his 3rd ever game this past weekend, threw 3 touchdowns. So it's not impossible. It's not, right? It's not like only the elite quarterbacks are doing this. I don't think you can use the offensive line as an excuse anymore. Broderick Jones has stabilized it. You certainly can't use the run game as an excuse. Jalen Warren and Najee Harris have been fantastic the past couple of weeks. And I don't necessarily think you can blame Deontay Johnson and George Pickens. Those guys have a lot of talent. Johnson, a former Pro Bowler. We know what Pickens can do in terms of his catch radius, his ability to make big plays. So it falls on the quarterback right now, the fact that this team can't seem to score points. The last game, a 13-10 loss at the Cleveland Browns. Also, the straw that broke the camel's back, of course, when it comes to Matt Canada being the offensive coordinator. So here's what Pickett has a chance to do, and it's twofold. One, he has a chance to take a deep breath, reset a little bit. Maybe this sparks, some of the offense. And we'll talk about who's now calling plays and going to be the offensive coordinator in a second here. But I think it's also ironic that there is now more pressure on Kenny Pickett's shoulders. That's why I thought the Steelers were not going to fire Matt Canada until the end of the season. Because then you have the whole offseason to say to yourself, well, it was Canada's fault the offense stunk. Let's give Kenny Pickett a new regime and then see what he can do. But the poor production just forced the Steelers' hand. I don't think they wanted to fire him. They wanted to give Kenny, some relief, at least the whole offseason to work with another coordinator, but they couldn't. They had to do this. And so what it creates now is more on Kenny Pickett's shoulders. Because if he doesn't look significantly better these next handful of games, heading into the playoffs potentially, then maybe it was a Kenny Pickett problem, or at least a large percentage of it was a Kenny Pickett problem. Obviously, Matt Canada is going to take some of that pie chart as well. So really, really interesting, that dynamic, right? Because on one side, Kenny, you can unleash him, right? Throw it down the field. Obviously, the play calling is going to improve. Couldn't get much worse. But on the other hand, this is now a player who is in prove-it mode. There's no more, we'll go into his 3rd year with a new regime, and potentially he will burst onto the scene because he's lost Matt Canada. It is time. Late in year 2, he has to be significantly better. No, I'm not talking about, one more game with 2 touchdowns thrown. I want to see, 3 or 4 games with 2 touchdowns thrown. That's what Mason Rudolph did when he was thrust into action in 2019 after Ben Roethlisberger got hurt in his first significant time. So that's one part of the equation, of course, is Kenny Pickett. Next part of the equation is who's calling plays and who is stepping in for Matt Canada now that he is sitting at home, rest on the couch, drinking some Stoney's beer. So running back coach Eddie Faulkner, who Jalen Warren talked about on the show, of course, every time he's been on, we talk a little bit about Eddie Faulkner. Really a stand-up guy that the players have a lot of confidence in. Inspiring dude, a dude that has been a part of the NFL for a really long time. He's going to be the offensive coordinator, so he's going to get the team prepared throughout the week. Another interesting wrinkle, however, he's not going to call plays. Steelers quarterback coach Mike Sullivan will be calling plays, okay? He and Kenny Pickett have a strong relationship. Listen, obviously they both worked under Matt Canada, so I don't think there's going to be this drastic play calling change, because you have to think the quarterback and offensive coordinator are designing these things together, even though Canada had final say. So it's a fresh face, though, and it's a new voice. And it's clearly a guy who understands at this point that he's got to do things differently to breed success with this offense. Or else he's going to be in the same boat a guy like Canada was, which is off with his head at the end of the year, and let's bring in a whole new offensive staff and regime. So we'll see. Quarterback coach and offensive and running back coach are now going to be running the show for the Pittsburgh Steelers offensively. The good news is it can't get much worse. So starting at Cincinnati this weekend, we'll see the growth of Kenny Pickett and that breath of fresh air, obviously, that everybody is hoping to get, including the Steelers, from this situation. By the way, Mike Tomlin, he took full ownership of the Matt Canada firing. He said, "This was my decision," at his press conference today. Listen, I think Omar Khan was in that building, and probably Art Rooney the second. They all had a hand in making that decision. But Tomlin, the upstanding guy he is, putting it all on his shoulders, and long overdue. Like I said previously, no question about it. So how will the Steelers respond? They have an interesting game coming up against the Cincinnati Bengals. I'll talk about that in a minute. But first, I want to talk about Steel City Wheelhouse. We really want to thank them for being a sponsor with us. They truly are the best spot in Pittsburgh for tires, right? Get your windows tinted, get everything done at Steel City Wheelhouse. They'll hook you up. It's where the bar is set, steelcitywheelhouse.com. Absolutely wonderful people. Shout out John and John for not only supporting the podcast, watching the podcast on the regular, helping Pittsburghers, helping guys like Jaylen Warren. Listen, you wonder why Jaylen Warren's got the motor running on Sundays. It's because his motor in his car is all, fixed up and similar to what he's got going on in the field, because John and John make it happen at Steel City Wheelhouse. So we want to thank them, of course. But I want to talk a little bit about this upcoming matchup. Joe Burrow, maybe the most significant injury in the AFC North this season, went down last Thursday night in the Ravens-Bengals matchup, had a wrist injury, tore ligaments. He's out for the year, which creates an opening in the AFC North, of course, because I had penciled in the Bengals as a playoff team and a potential Super Bowl contender. You feel like it's probably not the case anymore. You're going to get Jake Browning, inexperienced quarterback out of Washington, who's been in the league, had a cup of coffee with a few different teams. He's making his first career NFL start this Sunday. But then again, the Steelers just played an inexperienced, undrafted, or I should say fifth-round rookie out of UCLA, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and they lost that game. So this is far from a given, right? The Bengals are still a good football team. They're still technically in the playoff hunt. This game is in Cincinnati, so it's a road game where those fans are still going to be rabid because it's the daunted Pittsburgh Steelers coming into town, a team that's kicked their ass for the last 2 decades, opposed to the last few years except for the last few years when Joe Burrow put his stamp down. But the prognosticators right now have the Steelers as a 1-point favorite, so they feel the exact same way I do. Far from a given, a coin flip, quite literally a toss-up. I think it helps the Steelers that Matt Canada was fired because, like I said before, they can go in and have that breath of fresh air. And the Bengals defense is not as good as the Cleveland Browns defense. They got torched by the Ravens last Thursday. That was a tough matchup for Pittsburgh, especially with a struggling quarterback to go against the likes of Myles Garrett and a Browns defense that has held a lot of opponents to similar statistics and point totals that the Steelers had last weekend. And that's the last thing I'm going to touch on is the Steelers' schedule coming up. They knew what they were doing when firing Matt Canada now. Very smart decision because they have after the Bengals, they have the Patriots, who are 2-8. They have the Cardinals, who are 2-8. Then they have the 5-5 Colts. So by my math, that record is about 9-21 in terms of their record moving forward after this Bengals game. If you can't get hot now, and if Kenny Pickett can't show you he's a franchise quarterback in these next handful of games against inferior competition, in games the Steelers should and better win if they want to make the playoffs, you probably know what you have moving forward. But it makes all the sense in the world to me, the timing, because you feel like the confidence is going to grow anyways in these winnable games against piss-poor teams. So maybe everybody says, okay, maybe it was Matt Canada in the first place, instead of realizing Maybe it's just because they're going to be playing teams like the Patriots and the Cardinals. But I expect the Steelers to go on a little bit of a run here. Win or lose against the Bengals, there's a chance to take 3 of the next 4 games. And even if they go 2-2, they're sitting at 8-6 down the home stretch of their schedule where they do have the Bengals again. They need to get that 10-win mark. They get to the 10-win mark, they will make the playoffs. But ultimately, once more, that's not the goal. That's not the standard in Pittsburgh. The standard is to win playoff games and ultimately win a Super Bowl. So it's time to fat out, face the music if you're Kenny Pickett. Are you going to be that guy, right? Are you the face of the franchise? Was it Matt Canada's fault? Or were you a big part of the problem as well? I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank one more of our great sponsors today, Brushes and Beans. Caffeinate and Create, 4550 William Penn Highway in Murraysville. I miss JY. He always shouts out his double shot of espresso. I'm going to miss the show tonight for what it's worth. If you're watching this, I'm sad that I won't be able to see my fellow Yinzers, but Jordan York is going to hold it down. He might have 2 double shots of espresso at Brushes and Beans tonight because he's going to be on one. The energy level is going to be insane. We've almost sold out this event, so if you are watching this once more, see if you can get in the door. Walk-ups, though, might not be accepted. Check out Cafe Note, reach out to them. And once again, always a chance that you get to go check out the Jaylen Warren show in person next time if you're unable to make it this year. All right, everybody, I want to thank you for joining me riding solo today, ranting and rambling about the Steelers and Matt Canada. But it's such a big day. How could I not jump on the pod and give you guys a little perspective from the Sick Podcast? Steelers Crazy, part of the Sick Network. Like, subscribe, follow us on Twitter. More giveaways coming and more interviews with who I think is the Steelers' best offensive player. Yeah, who thought of that coming into the season? None other than Jaylen Warren every Tuesday here on the Jaylen Warren Show. All right, thanks so much for joining us, guys. Till next time.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Steelers Crazy on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.